Amara Cohn was 18 when her world first crumbled. In the dusty streets of Bamako, Mali, she walked with the grace of a gazelle and carried dreams bigger than the vast Sahara itself. Her dark skin glowed like polished ebony in the morning sun, and her eyes held the wisdom of generations of strong women who came before her. She was the first girl in her family to attend university, studying literature with hopes of becoming a teacher. Every morning she would sit under the ancient baobab tree in their compound, reading novels that transported her to different worlds. Her grandmother, Mama Fatoumata, would watch her with knowing eyes and say, "Child, books will feed your mind, but life will teach your heart." Amara lived with her grandmother, aunt, and 3 younger cousins in a modest compound on the outskirts of Bamako. Her mother had died giving birth to her youngest brother, and her father worked in the gold mines, sending money home when he could. The responsibility of raising the children fell on the women, as it always did. "Education is your weapon against poverty," Mama Fatoumata would tell her every morning as she braided Amara's hair. "You study hard, my child. You become somebody. You break the chain of suffering that has held our women for too long." But fate has a cruel way of laughing at the dreams of poor girls. Malik Traore was 26 and drove a battered taxi that had seen better decades. His hands were strong from years of gripping the steering wheel through Mali's rough roads, and his heart carried the weight of supporting his sick mother and 3 sisters. He had dropped out of school at 14 when his father died, sacrificing his own education so his sisters could continue theirs. Every Tuesday and Thursday, he would pick up university students from the compound where Amara lived, driving them to campus for a few precious francs. He first noticed her not because of her beauty, though she was breathtaking, but because of the way she protected her books from the dust, cradling them like precious children. "How you treat those books like they contain the secrets of the universe," he said one morning, as she carefully wrapped her literature textbook in cloth. Amara looked up, surprised that the quiet driver had spoken to her. "Maybe they do," she replied, softly. "Books have always been my escape." "Escape from what?" "From a life that feels too small for my dreams." Something in her voice made Malik's chest tighten. He understood that feeling, the suffocating weight of circumstances beyond your control, the desperate desire for something more than survival. Over the months that followed, their Tuesday and Thursday conversations became the highlight of both their weeks. Malik would save interesting stories from his other passengers to share with her. Amara would tell him about the books she was reading, painting pictures of distant lands with her words. "You have a gift," Malik told her one afternoon as she described a novel about a woman who became a doctor despite impossible odds. "You make words come alive." "It's just stories," Amara said, but her cheeks warmed at the compliment. "No," Malik said seriously, catching her eyes in the rearview mirror. "It's hope. You give people hope just by existing." The festival of Tabaski arrived with its usual chaos of celebration. The compound was alive with preparations, women cooking massive pots of rice and meat, children running between their legs, the scent of incense and perfume filling the air. Amara had finished her first-year exams and was celebrating her excellent results. But celebration turned to crisis when Mama Fatoumata collapsed in the courtyard. The old woman had been hiding her illness for months, not wanting to burden the family with medical expenses they couldn't afford. By the time they got her to the Ike hospital, the doctors delivered devastating news: advanced heart disease. The treatment would cost more money than the family could even imagine. "We'll find a way," Amara's aunt said, but her voice carried no conviction. That night, as Amara sat by her grandmother's bedside in the overcrowded hospital ward, Mama Fatoumata took her hand with trembling fingers. "My child," she whispered, "promise me something. Don't let my sickness steal your future. Whatever happens to me, you continue your studies. You become the woman you're meant to be." "Don't talk like that, Grandmama. You're going to get better. I'm an old woman, child. I've lived my life. But you have so much life ahead of you. Promise me." Through her tears, Amara promised. The medical bills were crushing. Amara's aunt sold her jewelry. The neighbors contributed what they could, but it wasn't enough. The doctors said without surgery, Mama Fatoumata had weeks to live. Desperate, Amara began working extra jobs, cleaning houses, selling water by the roadside, anything to earn money, but it was never enough. The cost of the surgery remained impossibly high. It was during this time of crisis that Uncle Seydou appeared. Seydou was Amara's father's older brother, a man who had moved to Abidjan years ago and made money in ways nobody discussed openly. He was 53 years old, already had 2 wives, and his reputation made mothers hide their daughters when he visited. "I can pay for Mama Fatoumata's surgery," he told the family one evening, his gold teeth glinting in the lamplight. "But I want something in return." Everyone knew what he wanted before he said it. "Amara is 18 now, old enough to be a wife. I've been watching her grow into a beautiful woman. I'll pay all the medical expenses and give the family money for a year if she agrees to marry me." The silence that followed was deafening. "Never," Amara said immediately. "I won't do it." "Child," her aunt said quietly, "maybe we should think about this." "There's nothing to think about." Amara's voice cracked with emotion. "I won't sell myself to save anyone." But that night, listening to Mama Fatoumata's labored breathing, watching the woman who had sacrificed everything for her struggle for each breath, Amara felt her resolve crumbling. On the night before she was supposed to give Uncle Seydou her answer, Amara couldn't sleep. She walked to the baobab tree where she used to read and study, trying to find clarity in the darkness. She was crying when Malik found her there. He had heard about the family's crisis through the network of drivers and neighbors that connected their community. He had been looking for her all evening, worried about the pain he had seen in her eyes that morning. "Amara," he said softly, sitting beside her on the worn wooden bench beneath the tree. "Tell me what's wrong." And she told him everything. About Uncle Seydou's proposal, about Mama Fatoumata's illness, about the impossible choice between her grandmother's life and her own future. "I can't let her die," Amara sobbed. "She raised me. She sacrificed everything for my education. How can I choose my dreams over her life?" Malik listened without judgment, his heart breaking for this girl who was being forced to choose between love and survival. "There has to be another way," he said finally. "There is no other way. We've tried everything. Uncle Seydou is the only person who can afford the surgery." They sat in silence for a long time, the weight of her words hanging between them like a death sentence. "Amara," Malik said finally, his voice barely above a whisper, What if there was another way? What if someone else could help?" "Who?" "We've asked everyone. There's no one. What if I could find the money?" Amara looked at him through her tears. "You? Malik, you're as poor as we are. How could you possibly?" "There are ways," he said quietly. "Dangerous ways, but ways." Amara's blood ran cold. She knew what he meant. In their world, desperate men sometimes turn to smuggling, to running drugs across borders, to risking their lives for money. "No," she said immediately. "I won't let you destroy your life for us." "My life is already being lived one day at..." "For a time, Amara, I drive a taxi for coins while my dreams rot away, but you have a chance to become something extraordinary. You have a chance to break the cycle. Not at the cost of your safety." Malik turned to face her fully, his eyes intense in the moonlight. What if it wasn't just about the money? What if there was something between us? Something real? The air between them shifted, charged with an electricity that had been building for months. Amara felt her heart racing as she looked into the eyes of this man who was willing to risk everything for her family. "Malik, I love you," he said simply. "I've loved you since the first day you talked about books like they were magic. I love your dreams, your strength, your beautiful mind. I love the way you see the world as a place full of possibilities instead of just survival." Amara felt tears streaming down her face. "I love you too," she whispered. "But love doesn't solve our problems. Maybe not, but love gives us strength to face them." In that moment, under the ancient baobab tree that had witnessed generations of joy and sorrow, Amara and Malik came together. Their first kiss was desperate, passionate, full of the pain of their circumstances and the hope that love might somehow be enough. What happened next was inevitable. They were young, in love, facing an impossible situation that made the future feel uncertain. In the warmth of each other's arms, they found a moment of peace, a brief escape from the harsh realities surrounding them. They made love under the stars, with the gentle wisdom of the baobab tree watching over them, two souls finding comfort in each other while their world crumbled around them. Dawn brought harsh reality crashing back. Amara woke in Malik's arms, the gravity of their situation unchanged by their night of passion. If anything, it was more complicated now. "I have to go," she whispered, untangling herself from his embrace. "People will be looking for me." "Amara, wait." Malik caught her hand. "Last night, it wasn't just about desperation. What I said, about loving you, it's true." "I know," she said, her voice breaking. "I love you too. But love doesn't change the fact that Grandmama is dying, or that Uncle Seydu is waiting for my answer. Then let me find another way. Give me time." "We don't have time," the doctors said. "1 week," Malik pleaded. "Give me 1 week to find the money another way. If I can't, then you do what you have to do." Amara looked at this man who was willing to move mountains for her and nodded through her tears. What Malik didn't tell Amara was that he had already made his choice. There was a man in Bamako who organized runs to Algeria, smuggling goods across the desert. The pay was enormous, but the risks were deadly. Many men who took those jobs never came back. Malik borrowed money against his taxi, money he couldn't afford to lose, and paid for Mama Fatumata's immediate treatment to buy them time. Then he prepared for the most dangerous week of his life. The plan was simple: drive a truckload of goods across the desert to Algeria, collect payment, and return. If everything went perfectly, he would have enough money for the surgery and more. If it didn't, he left without telling Amara the details, only that he had found work that would pay well. The journey was a nightmare. Desert storms, checkpoint bribes, mechanical failures, and the constant fear of bandits made every mile a battle for survival. But Malik pushed forward, thinking of Amara's tears, of Mama Fatumata's labored breathing, of a future where education could lift a family out of poverty. On the 5th day, everything went wrong. The truck broke down in the middle of nowhere, stranding Malik and 2 other drivers in the vast emptiness of the Sahara. They managed to send word back, but rescue would take days they didn't have. Meanwhile, in Bamako, Mama Fatumata's condition worsened rapidly. The temporary treatment Malik had paid for was failing, and the doctors gave the family an ultimatum: surgery within 48 hours, or there would be nothing more they could do. Uncle Seydu arrived at the hospital like a vulture circling prey. "Where is your driver boy now?" he asked Amara with cruel satisfaction. "I told you he couldn't solve your problems. Only I can help your family." Amara, exhausted from days of worry about both Malik and her grandmother, felt her last reserves of strength crumbling. "If I agree," she said quietly, "you'll pay for everything? The surgery, the recovery, everything?" "Everything," Uncle Seydu promised. "And your family will never want for anything again." That night, as Amara sat by her grandmother's bedside, Mama Fatumata took her hand with what little strength she had left. "Child," she whispered, "I see the decision in your eyes. You're going to sacrifice yourself for me. Grandmama, please don't." "Listen to me," the old woman said with sudden intensity. "I am dying, child. The surgery might give me a few more months, maybe a year. But if you marry that man, your life dies today, your dreams die, your spirit dies. And then my death will have killed 2 people instead of 1. I can't let you die knowing I could have saved you. And I can't die knowing I let you destroy yourself to save me." Mama Fatumata's eyes filled with tears. "Promise me, child. Promise me you won't do it. Promise me you'll choose life even if it means letting me go." Amara couldn't promise. She couldn't say the words that would sentence her beloved grandmother to death. The next morning, Uncle Seydu arrived for his answer. Amara had spent the night in agony, torn between love and duty, between her grandmother's pleas and her family's desperate need. "I need more time," she said. "There is no more time," Uncle Seydu replied coldly. "The doctors say, if we don't operate today, it will be too late. Choose now, girl. Your grandmother's life or your foolish dreams. Amara closed her eyes, feeling the weight of generations of women who had sacrificed their own happiness for their family's survival. She thought of her mother, who had died giving life. She thought of her aunt, who had never married because she had to raise other people's children. She thought of all the dreams that had been buried beneath duty and necessity. "I'll do it," she whispered. The words felt like ash in her mouth, but she said them. Uncle Sadhu smiled triumphantly. "Good girl. We'll have the ceremony tomorrow, after your grandmother's surgery." As he left to make arrangements, Amara felt something die inside her. She was no longer a girl with dreams. She was a commodity traded for medical bills and family survival. But fate wasn't finished with its cruel games. Just as the doctors were preparing Mama Fatoumata for surgery, paid for with Uncle Sadhu's blood money, news arrived that made everything infinitely worse. Malik had returned. He staggered into the hospital compound, sunburned and exhausted, from his ordeal in the desert, carrying a bag full of money, enough for the surgery and more. He had nearly died getting it, but he had kept his promise. "Amara," he called out, searching for her frantically. "I got the money. I got it." But he was too late. Amara appeared from the hospital entrance, and the joy on Malik's face died when he saw her expression. "You're too late," she said quietly. "The surgery is already paid for. I'm getting married tomorrow." The bag of money fell from Malik's hands, scattering bills across the dusty ground like broken dreams. "No," he said, his voice cracking. "No, you can't. I got the money. You don't have to do this." "It's done, Malik. The arrangements are made. If I back out now, Uncle Sadhu will take back his payment, and Grandmama will die anyway." "Then I'll pay him back. I have the money." "It's not just about money anymore," Amara said, tears streaming down her face. "He'll never let this insult stand. He'll make sure our family is destroyed, that I can never go back to university, that you lose your taxi license. He has that kind of power." Malik stared at her, understanding the trap she was caught in. In their world, men like Uncle Sadhu didn't just buy wives. They bought control over entire families. "There has to be another way," he said desperately. "There is no other way," Amara replied, her voice hollow. There never was. The wedding was a mockery of celebration. Amara sat in the traditional wedding dress Uncle Sadhu had bought her, looking like a beautiful corpse. The other women tried to paint joy on her face with makeup and henna, but they couldn't hide the death in her eyes. Malik stood outside the compound, watching from a distance, as the woman he loved was prepared for a life that would kill her spirit, slowly day by day. Mama Fatoumata, recovering from her successful surgery, was too weak to attend, but she had blessed Amara with tears in her eyes. "Forgive me, child," she had whispered. "Forgive me for letting you do this." The ceremony was brief and joyless. Uncle Sadhu smiled with the satisfaction of a man who had finally claimed his prize, while Amara spoke her vows like a sleepwalker. But as the Imam pronounced them husband and wife, Amara felt something unexpected happening inside her body. A flutter, a strange sensation that made her place her hand on her stomach in confusion. She was late. She had been so consumed with Mama Fatoumata's illness that she hadn't noticed, but now, as the reality of her new marriage settled over her like a shroud, she realized the truth. She was pregnant, with Malik's child. For 2 weeks, Amara lived in Uncle Sadhu's house like a ghost. He was not cruel to her. He treated her like a prized possession, showering her with clothes and jewelry while expecting her to be grateful for her golden cage. But the pregnancy was changing everything. Her body was changing. Her emotions were chaotic, and the secret was eating her alive. She couldn't tell Uncle Sadhu. If he discovered she was pregnant with another man's child, his rage would be murderous. He might kill her, or worse, he might hurt her family in revenge. She couldn't tell her family. They were finally stable. Mama Fatoumata was recovering, and the knowledge would destroy them. She couldn't even tell Malik, because he was suffering enough already. She had seen him driving his taxi through the neighborhood, his face gaunt with grief, and she couldn't bear to add to his pain. So she carried the secret alone, feeling the life growing inside her, while her own life withered away. But secrets have a way of revealing themselves. Uncle Sadhu was not a stupid man. He had been married before, and he recognized the signs. When Amara began experiencing morning sickness, when she couldn't hide her exhaustion, when her body began to change, he started counting backward. The confrontation came on a Thursday morning, exactly 1 month after their wedding. "You're pregnant," he said, standing in their bedroom doorway with deadly calm. Amara felt the blood drain from her face. "What? Don't lie to me, girl. I can see it in your face, in your body. You're pregnant, and this child isn't mine." The silence stretched between them like a weapon. "It's the driver, isn't it? Isn't it?" Uncle Sadhu's voice was getting dangerous. "That boy who was sniffing around you. You gave yourself to him before you came to me." Amara said nothing, but her silence was confirmation enough. Uncle Sadhu's face twisted with rage and humiliation. "Oh, you made me a fool. You made me pay for another man's whore." "It's not like that," Amara said quietly, finding her voice. "I love him." The slap came so fast, she didn't see it coming. Uncle Sadhu's hand connected with her cheek with enough force to knock her to the ground. "Love?" he snarled. "You think love matters? You think your feelings mean anything? You belong to me now. I paid for you, and I'll decide what happens to you and that bastard child." What followed was the darkest period of Amara's young life. Uncle Sadhu locked her in the house, telling everyone she was sick and needed rest. He took away her phone, cut off her contact with her family, and began making plans for what he called solving the problem. "There are doctors who can take care of this," he told her coldly. "After that's done, we'll start fresh. You'll give me legitimate sons and we'll forget this embarrassment ever happened." Amara understood he was talking about an abortion, forced, dangerous, and possibly deadly. But she also understood something else. This child was her last connection. To Malik, to love, to the person she used to be. Losing the baby would be losing the last piece of her soul. She had to escape. The plan was desperate and dangerous. Uncle Sadhu had hired a woman to watch her during the day while he worked, but the woman was old and dozed frequently. During one of these naps, Amara broke a window in the back of the house and climbed out, cutting her hands and arms on the glass. Bleeding and desperate, she made her way through back alleys to the taxi stand where she knew Malik would be. She found him sleeping in his taxi, waiting for passengers, and the sight of him made her collapse with relief. "Malik," she whispered, shaking him awake. When he saw her bloody, terrified, clearly injured, his face went white with rage. "What did he do to you?" "We have to leave," Amara said urgently. "Right now he's going to kill me and he's going to kill the baby." "Baby?" Malik stared at her in shock. "I'm pregnant, Malik, with your child. That's why we have to go. Now." What followed was a desperate flight across Mali. Malik used the money he had earned from his desert run to buy bus tickets to Bamako's outskirts, then hired a truck to take them toward the border. They had no plan beyond escape, no destination except away. Uncle Sadhu discovered her escape within hours and began a manhunt. He had connections throughout the region, police, officials, criminals. Word went out that he was looking for his runaway wife and the man who had taken her. For 3 days, Amara and Malik moved like fugitives, sleeping in trucks, hiding in villages, paying bribes to stay ahead of Uncle Sadhu's search. Amara was sick from the pregnancy and the stress, barely able to eat or keep water down. On the 3rd night, in a small village near the Burkina Faso border, they found temporary shelter with a woman named Hadiza who ran a small guest house for travelers. "You're running from something bad," Hadiza observed, seeing their fear and exhaustion. "Very bad," Malik confirmed. Hadiza studied them for a long moment, then made a decision that would save their lives. "There's a truck leaving for Ouagadougou tomorrow morning. The driver owes me a favor. He can take you, but after that you're on your own." That night, as they lay together in the small room Hadiza had given them, Amara finally allowed herself to cry for everything she had lost. Her education, her family, her future, her innocence. "I'm sorry," she whispered to Malik. "I'm sorry I destroyed your life too." "You didn't destroy anything," Malik said, holding her close. "You saved me. Before I met you, I was just surviving. Now I have something to live for. But we have nothing. No money, no home, no future. And there's a baby coming." "Then we'll build something new," Malik said with quiet determination. "We'll find a way." Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso, became their sanctuary, It was a big enough city to disappear in, far enough from Mali to feel safe, and full of opportunities for people willing to work hard. Malik found work driving a delivery truck for a Lebanese businessman who didn't ask questions about papers or backgrounds. Amara, despite her pregnancy, found work helping in a market stall run by a kind woman named Salamata, who had also fled Mali years earlier. "Life has a way of testing us," Salamata told Amara, as she taught her to manage inventory and handle customers. "The question is whether we let the tests break us or make us stronger." For the first time in months, Amara felt something like hope. They rented a tiny room in a crowded compound, barely big enough for a bed and a small cooking area, but it was theirs. No one told them what to do, whom to marry, how to live. The pregnancy progressed healthily, despite all the stress and upheaval. Amara found a midwife in the neighborhood who had delivered hundreds of babies and who reminded her of Mama Fatoumata with her stern kindness. "This baby is strong," the midwife told her during one of their visits. "It has survived everything. You've survived. It's meant to be here." As her belly grew, Amara began to see the pregnancy not as a complication or a reminder of trauma, but as a symbol of hope, proof that love could create life even in the darkest circumstances. Amara went into labor on a rainy night in October, 8 months after fleeing Mali. The labor was long and difficult, complicated by malnutrition and stress, but when their daughter was finally born, she was perfect. They named her Fatoumata, after Mama Fatoumata, but called her Fatou. She had Malik's strong hands and Amara's intelligent eyes, and when she looked at her parents, it was as if she understood the love story that had brought her into existence. "She's going to be extraordinary," Salamata said, holding the baby with experienced hands. "I can see it in her face. This child is going to break barriers." In the months that followed, their small family fell into a rhythm. Malik worked long hours driving. Amara returned to the market with baby Fatou strapped to her back, and slowly they began to build something resembling stability. But the loss of everything they had left behind was a constant ache. Amara missed her grandmother terribly, worried about her family, and grieved for the education she had been forced to abandon. She would sometimes sit with Fatou in the evenings, reading whatever book she could find, dreaming of the teacher she had wanted to become. "You're still going to be a teacher," Malik told her one night, watching her read to their daughter. "Maybe not the way you originally planned, but you're already teaching. You're teaching Fatou, you're teaching the other children in the compound. You're teaching me." "It's not the same," Amara said sadly. "I was going to have a degree, a real position, respect." "Respect comes from who you are, not from papers on a wall," Malik replied. "And you're the strongest, most intelligent woman I've ever known." 2 years after fleeing Mali, a letter arrived that changed everything. It was from Amara's aunt, delivered through a complicated network of friends and relatives who had tracked them down. Mama Fatoumata had died. The letter was brief and devastating. "She died peacefully in her sleep, calling your name. She never stopped loving you, never stopped saying you made the right choice. She was proud of you for choosing life over death, love over duty. Uncle, Seydou remarried within 3 months and doesn't speak your name. Your father sends his love and says he understands why you had to go. The family is safe." Amara cried for 3 days straight, mourning the grandmother who had shaped her, who had died without seeing her great-granddaughter, who had sacrificed her own peace of mind to free Amara from an impossible choice. But within the grief was something else, a message. Mama Fatoumata had been proud of her, had believed she made the right choice, had understood that some forms of survival weren't really living at all. Inspired by her grandmother's posthumous blessing, Amara began to rebuild her dreams in new forms. She started teaching basic literacy to women in their compound, using Fatou's nap time to help neighbors learn to read and write. Word spread quickly. Soon women were coming from other compounds, bringing their children, hungry for the education they had been denied. "You should charge for this," Salamata suggested. "You're providing a valuable service." "How can I charge women who have as little as I do?" Amara asked. "Then find people who can pay to support the ones who can't," Salamata said pragmatically. "There are Lebanese families, expatriate families. people who would pay good money for quality tutoring for their children. Use that money to fund free classes for the poor women. It was brilliant advice. Within 6 months, Amara had built a small but sustainable teaching practice. She tutored the children of middle-class families in French and English in the mornings and taught literacy to poor women in the afternoons. Malik, seeing his wife's happiness return as she taught, made a decision of his own. He had been saving money from his driving job, and he used it to rent a small storefront where Amara could hold her classes properly. "It's not the university you dreamed of," he said as they stood in the empty room that would become their school. But it's yours. Completely yours. École de seconde chance, School of Second Chances, was painted on the storefront in bright blue letters. It became a beacon of hope in their neighborhood. Amara taught children during the day and adults in the evening. Malik, inspired by his wife's example, began offering driving lessons and basic automotive repair classes. Little Fatou, now 3 years old and bright as a star, became the school's mascot, switching easily between French, Arabic, and the local Moor language. The school grew by word of mouth. Women who learned to read brought their sisters. Children who improved their grades became walking advertisements. Malik's automotive classes attracted young men who needed skills to find work. But the real success stories were the women. There was Aicha, who learned to read at 45 and started her own successful tailoring business. There was Mariam, who learned French and got a job as a translator for an NGO. There was Rachida, who learned basic math and became the compound's unofficial accountant, helping other women manage their small businesses. "You're changing lives," Salamata told Amara one evening as they watched their students practice writing their names. "You're doing what your grandmother dreamed you would do." "I'm doing what I had to do to survive," Amara replied. "Everything. Health is just mitasua bonus." But she was proud. Despite everything she had lost, she had found a way to become the teacher she had always wanted to be. On a Tuesday morning in Fatou's 4th year, a woman appeared at the school asking for Amara. She was well dressed, clearly from Mali, and carried herself with the authority of education and money. "I'm looking for Amara Cohn," she said. "I was told she teaches here." "I'm Amara," she replied cautiously, wondering if this was somehow connected to Uncle Seydou, if her past had finally caught up with her. "My name is Dr. Aminata Diallo. I'm from the University of Bamako. I've heard about your school, about the work you're doing here. I'd like to talk to you about an opportunity." What followed was the most surreal conversation of Amara's life. Dr. Diallo explained that she ran a program for refugees and displaced persons, helping them complete their education through distance learning and practical experience. "Your story is not uncommon," she said gently. "Many bright young women have their formal education interrupted by circumstances beyond their control. But education doesn't end because of life's interruptions. It just takes different forms." She had heard about Amara's school through NGO networks, had seen the results: women becoming literate, children improving their grades, families breaking cycles of poverty through education. "What you've built here is remarkable," Dr. Diallo said. "You're teaching, you're administrating, you're developing curriculum, you're managing a business. You're doing the work of a professional educator without the credentials. What are you saying?" "I'm saying we can help you get those credentials: portfolio-based degree completion, recognition of your practical experience, bridge programs to get you back into formal education if you want it. You could finish your degree, get proper certification, maybe even continue to graduate studies." Amara felt her heart racing. The dreams she had buried were clawing their way back to life. "What would that mean for my school? For my students? Here?" "Nothing has to change here," Dr. Diallo assured her. "This work you're doing is exactly the kind of community-based education we want to support and expand. Getting official credentials would only make you more effective at it." 2 years later, Amara walked across a stage in Ouagadougou to receive her bachelor's degree in education, completed through a combination of distance learning, portfolio assessment, and practical demonstration. Malik and Fatou were in the audience, cheering loudly enough to embarrass other families. But the real celebration was back at École de Seconde Chance, where Amara's first students had organized a surprise party. The walls were covered with photos showing the school's growth, from one small room to 3 rooms, from a handful of students to over 200, from basic literacy to computer training and business development classes. "You did it," Salamata said, embracing her former market helper who had become an officially credentialed educator. "You found a way to get everything you dreamed of." "Not everything," Amara said, thinking of Mama Fatoumata, of the family she rarely saw, of the complicated path that had brought her to this moment. But enough, more than enough. Dr. Diallo was there too, with more news. The Ministry of Education wants to use your school as a model for community-based education programs across West Africa. They're offering funding to expand, to train other teachers in your methods. Malik squeezed Amara's hand. "From taxi rides to international recognition," he murmured. "If someone had told me this story 8 years ago, I would have called them crazy." "It's not finished yet," Amara replied, looking at 6-year-old Fatou, who was teaching a group of younger children how to write their names in Arabic. "This is just the beginning." The success of École des Secondes Chances brought unexpected gifts. Media attention led to recognition, which led to invitations to speak at conferences, which led to connections with other educators across Africa. One of those connections brought news from Mali. Uncle Seydou had died in a car accident 2 years earlier. The news brought complicated emotions, relief, guilt, a strange sort of closure. More importantly, it meant it was safe to reconnect with family. The reunion happened through careful intermediaries at first, letters, then phone calls, finally video calls that left everyone crying. Amara's aunt had aged, her cousins had grown up, her father was grayer but still alive. "We never stopped thinking about you," her aunt said through tears during their first video call. "We never stopped hoping you were safe and happy." "Are you happy, daughter?" her father asked during a private conversation. "Really happy?" Amara looked around her school, at the photos of successful students on the walls, at Malik teaching, a young man how to change a tire in the courtyard, at Fatou helping younger children with their homework. "Yes, Papa," she said with certainty. "I'm happy. Not in the way I expected to be, but happy." The family began sending small gifts, photos, traditional cloth, news about neighbors and relatives. They couldn't visit yet. Travel between countries was expensive and complicated, but the emotional connection was restored. Most importantly, they sent news about Mama Fatoumata's final months. She had apparently spoken often about Amara, always with pride, always with the conviction that her granddaughter had chosen correctly. "She said you were the strongest woman she ever knew," her aunt reported. "She said you chose love over fear, hope over despair, life over mere survival." She was proud until the day she died. Today, 10 years after fleeing Mali as a desperate teenager, Amara stands before a United Nations conference on girls' education in Dakar, Senegal. She wears a traditional boubou made from fabric her family sent from Mali, and her presentation is about using community-based education to reach girls and women who have been failed by formal systems. L'École des Secondes Chances now has 12 locations across Burkina Faso and has trained teachers for similar programs in 5 other countries. Amara holds a master's degree in international education and is working on her doctorate through a distance program. Malik runs a successful driving school and automotive training center. He's also earned his high school equivalency and is taking business classes at the local university. Their marriage, forged in crisis, has grown into something built on mutual respect, shared dreams, and deep love. Fatou, now 13, is trilingual, academically gifted, and shows every sign of inheriting her mother's passion for education and her father's mechanical aptitude. She volunteers at the school, teaches younger children, and dreams of becoming an engineer. "I want to build schools," she tells anyone who asks about her plans. "Schools that don't fall down when the rains come. Schools with solar power and computers, schools where girls like Mama can learn even when life gets complicated." But perhaps the most important legacy is the hundreds of women who have passed through École des Secondes Chances and gone on to transform their own lives and communities. The ripple effects are immeasurable. Children who stay in school because their mothers can now help with homework. Families that escape poverty because women learn to manage small businesses. Girls who see education as possible because they see examples all around them. Last month, Amara finally returned to Mali for the first time in 10 years. The occasion was bittersweet. She was invited to speak at the University of Bamako, the same institution where she had once been a literature student with simpler dreams. The homecoming was emotional. Her family had organized a celebration that brought together everyone who remembered the quiet girl who used to read under the baobab tree. The tree was still there, ancient and unchanging, witness to another generation of dreams and struggles. "You came back different than you left," her father observed as they sat beneath the tree where her journey had truly begun. "Everything is different," Amara agreed, "but some things never change. The need for education, the power of hope, the strength of women who refuse to give up." At the university, her lecture hall was packed. Students, professors, community members, and education officials came to hear the woman who had built an international education program from the ashes of a personal crisis. "I was supposed to graduate from this university 12 years ago," she told the audience. "Instead, I became pregnant, ran away from home, fled the country, and started over with nothing. By conventional measures, I was a complete failure." She paused, looking out at the young faces in the audience. So many of them female, so many of them carrying dreams that seemed too big for their circumstances. But failure is just life taking you on a different path than the one you planned. Education isn't just about degrees and certificates. It's about learning to think, to problem solve, to adapt, to survive and thrive despite impossible circumstances. It's about using knowledge to serve others. After the lecture, she was approached by dozens of young women with stories that echoed her own: family pressure, limited options, dreams that seemed impossible to achieve. "What advice do you have for girls like us?" one student asked. Amara thought about everything she had learned, everything she had lost and found and built. "Don't let anyone convince you that your life is over because of one choice, one mistake, one crisis," she said. "Don't let anyone tell you that survival is enough, and don't wait for someone else to give you permission to chase your dreams. Sometimes you have to build your own doors when all the traditional ones are closed." Tonight, Amara sits in the courtyard of École des Secondes Chances, watching her evening literacy class through the window. Malik is inside teaching automotive repair to a group of young men, and Fatou is helping elderly women practice writing their names. The scene is beautiful in its ordinariness, education happening in a simple room with basic supplies, transforming lives one lesson at a time. Amara thinks about Mama Fatoumata often, especially in quiet moments like this. She wonders what her grandmother would think of the life that grew from that terrible choice she was forced to make at 18. Would she be proud that her granddaughter had found a way to become a teacher after all, just not in the way anyone expected? Would she understand that sometimes the most important education happens outside of formal institutions? Would she see that love for Malik, love for Fatou, love for her students, had indeed been the right choice even when it seemed like the wrong one? The stars above Ouagadougou are the same ones that shine over Bamako, the same ones that witnessed that night under the baobab tree when everything changed. But Amara is no longer the frightened girl who thought her life was ending. She's a woman who learned that endings can become beginnings, that crisis can become opportunity, that love is worth every risk. Her phone buzzes with a message from a former student. "Teacher, I got the job. I'm going to be the first woman manager in my company. Thank you for teaching me that I was capable of more than I knew." Amara smiles, puts away her phone and goes inside to help with the evening classes. There's always more work to be done, more lives to change, more proof that education truly is the most powerful weapon against injustice. The girl who accidentally got pregnant and ran away from home had become the woman who accidentally started a movement. And the love story that began with desperation had become a love story about hope, resilience, and the incredible power of refusing to give up on your dreams, no matter how many times you have to rebuild them. In the end, Mama Fatoumata had been right. Books fed Amara's mind, but life taught her heart. And what her heart learned was this: that love doesn't always look the way we expect it to, that strength often comes disguised as catastrophe, and that the most beautiful lives are often built from the most broken beginnings. The end of 1. Story is always the beginning of another. And this story, born from tears and built with hope, continues to write itself in the lives of every girl who refuses to accept that her dreams are too big for her circumstances.